Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining us for our With My Mother Shorts program. I'm Sapana Sakya and I'm the Talent Development and Special Projects Manager with CAAM. We just watched a couple of powerful shorts, My Mother Tongue by Eris, Qian, and Awaken by Leena, Pendharkar. We are really excited to have the filmmaking teams here with us today. So if you do have any questions, please enter them below the video player box. And because we have two different films, please make sure to identify which film your question is for. Again, the films are Mother Tongue and Awaken. Now, before we bring our filmmaking teams on, we have a few people we need to thank. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge our wonderful co-presenter for this program. Thank you so much to the Hong Kong Association of Northern California for publicizing our event. And now we take this opportunity to thank our presenting sponsor, AARP, whose generous support helps make all of CAMFest's Heritage at Home programming free and accessible through these challenging times. I'd like to bring on INDIRA VENKAT from AARP to give a few opening remarks and tell us about their work. Welcome, INDIRA.
Thanks, Sapna, and thanks to CAAM for sharing these really profound and moving stories. AARP, the nation's largest nonprofit organization dedicated to improving the lives of the 50 plus and their families, is proud and honored to be sponsoring the screening of both Awaken and Mother Tongue, two films that squarely take on the tough topics of mental health and taking care of older loved ones. In both the films, what you see is the two female lead characters juggling what is already a very, very full plate in their own lives, juggling their professional lives and their personal lives while taking care of their mothers who have mental health conditions. And what is interesting is that through this journey, they have these sort of the relationships that come to a point. And in the caregiving journey, what is also interesting is to see that they have to come to terms with finding a care facility and then helping their mothers feel comfortable and, sort of in this new environment. So for me, the palpable moment there was that feeling of loneliness, that they were in this by themselves because of the impact that it had on their relationships. At AARP, we've been serving the community for over 60 years. And we understand and we're familiar with sort of the challenges and the difficulties people face in taking care of their loved ones. And it's sometimes not just one loved one, it could be multiple ones. And the way we are approaching it is to look at a caregiver from an all-round holistic standpoint, the emotional angle of it, the physical aspects, as well as financial pressures, which is, all very true. So if you just humor me, I'm going to put on my research hat on for just a little while to share with you, some results that we've just seen. In the US today, there are 48 million caregivers. So that's nearly 1 in 5 Americans who are taking care of an older one. And what's interesting is that over half of them really feel a sense of purpose in their role as a caregiver. But at the same time, they're sort of juggling this multiple, the strains of it. So it's joyous, but also draining at the same time. What they say is they feel alone. There's about a fifth that are feeling alone. That was so beautifully rendered in the movies. And about 3 in 10 are doing this without any additional support. They're taking it on themselves. And what we found in our studies is that Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, more so than any other group, feels that they really personally do not have a choice, but personally to take care of their older ones. So again, sort of, in reflecting this, and it brings back memories of my mother taking care of her mother-in-law growing up in India. All of these strands ring so true. So thank you again for giving us the opportunity.
It seems like AARP has a deep knowledge about caregiving. Perhaps you can give our audiences some tips and resources on caregiving?
Sure. One of the biggest challenges that we have observed is really starting the conversation. How do you start the discussion with your loved ones about current and future care. And so for this, we have a care handbook that is available to download for free that provides a sort of a step-by-step journey of how to plan and prepare for the role of as a caregiver. And so if you go to aarp.org/caregiving, you can download this. Another aspect that I'd like to sort of reiterate is the notion of, about a fourth of caregivers feel that this role has impacted their physical lives, right? Their health. And so what we say is it's important to underscore, and it's really important to underscore this point, take care of yourself. Wear your mask on first, because only then can you help someone else. Another aspect is sort of the social network. It's important, and especially in the sense of being alone, to have a social network, folks to cry with, to laugh with, and to share your gratitude with. AARP's caregiving Facebook group is quite active, so that would be another resource. And then finally, I would say our .org site has a lot of information on resources. And I cannot say enough about sort of the way we pivoted with the pandemic that we're facing. And even just this week, we had a teletown hall on this topic. So do go and visit our aarp.org caregiving area for all the resources.
Thank you so much, Indira, and thank you to AARP for your generous support. I'd like to also mention that if you're watching and you'd like to join the caregiving conversation, AARP has shared a 1-minute survey on the description page for this program that you can take. Thank you, Indira. Great to have you with us. And now, without further ado, we'd like to bring our filmmaking team for the first short, Mother Tongue. Please welcome director Eris, lead actress Jenny Lin, and composers Nareem Kim and Lemon Guo. Congratulations, everyone, on such a beautiful and poetic film.
Thank you.
We have several questions that have already started to come in, so I'm going to quickly jump in here. First of all, I know that you are based in New York, Eris, and I believe everyone on the team is also from the East Coast. How is everything going right now? I mean, with the pandemic, how are you all coping? Maybe we can start with that.
We're hanging in there.
Sapana.
Has it affected you guys at all in terms of your filmmaking or your work? Eris, maybe you can.
Yeah, thank you, Sapana. I actually just graduated from New York University today.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So our last half of the semester was spent remotely. So that's definitely a major way how my life and filmmaking was impacted. But right now I'm staying in Princeton, New Jersey, not really in the center of New York City. I think maybe Jenny and Nareem would have a better say in this, in their experience in New York.
Yeah, how are you guys doing?
We're just staying home, doing social distancing, staying home as much as possible, just to ease the spread as much as possible. I'm in Brooklyn, so it's less here, but I'm sure in the city it's a little tough. Nareem?
I also live in Brooklyn, and I haven't been to Manhattan for 2 months now. So I haven't rode the subway for 2 months, which is a new thing. And yeah, so I've been home most of the time, except going to grocery shopping, I guess. And then, yeah, definitely, like, it's hard to collaborate with people because you cannot meet them physically, but there are also ways to meet them remotely as well. So I'm still like in the talks of creating stuff with other filmmakers and other creators as well.
That's great. And Lemon, did you want to add anything?
I was living in Brooklyn, and then I came up here at the beginning of March to kind of hide out from the COVID situation. My work definitely changed since I came up here. The things that need to happen in real life are not happening. I'm just doing a lot of like remote online collaboration with people right now.
Well, thank you all for joining us remotely. So I wanted to get started, Eris, with, you know, how, I mean, where the inspiration for this film came from, and was it, we have a question from an audience member who asked if you actually spoke with your mom when you were conceptualizing the film. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about the background, and then talk about how you collaborated or your collaborators came on board.
Sure. So this film came from my own experience actually with my grandmother instead of my mother. My paternal grandmother had been suffering from Alzheimer's for more than 14 years now. And if anyone is familiar with this disease, it's a really, really long time. And my family members had been taking care of her. They're doing a great job. But on the other hand, my grandmother, she's from a rural area, so she speaks this certain dialect that is different from Mandarin. So growing up, even when she was healthy, I was never actually able to communicate with her verbally. But back then, I never felt the lack of her love because she also expresses in other ways, like cooking for me and giving me red packets. So this language barrier between us was not necessarily a barrier for love, and that was the main inspiration for this film. I came to the United States when I was 20 years old for higher education. And there I found that language was such a core part of my identity, because back then I didn't speak as good English. And then I sensed that people definitely did treat me in a certain way because I was immediately put in a certain bucket according to their own past experiences or blind spots. And through this film, I wanted to express that even though there is a language barrier between a lot of us, but the idea of love and caring, it transcends all culture.
That's amazing. Thank you. I was really struck, you know, in the film how poetic and beautiful, but the sound design was really interesting. And I know Nareem and Lemon, you guys worked on that. And really there's not much music in the film except for the song at the very end. So I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about the sound design and how you decided to come up with this treatment that really made it, you know, especially dreamy and really, I think, emotional.
Should I go?
Yeah, maybe Nareem can talk about the sound design.
So yeah, so in the beginning, we actually had more ideas on actually having like a melodic theme and everything. But as we went on, it felt like we were more drawn to soundscapes instead of music. So we did incorporate a lot of like Chinese instruments like yang Qian or like xiao, everything, but they all have very long notes, very like lingering long notes. So it doesn't feel like a moving melody, but it's more of a sound bed type of thing. Mm-hmm. But we were very conscious of, because this story is about the daughter becoming more empathized with her mother as she passes away. So the element of Chinese instruments, you know, it actually gradually increases as the story progresses. So that was one of the conscious choices that we had. And yeah, we consciously chose to only have like a vocal music only at the end. That was like something that actually it was Lemon's voice.
Yeah, it was
my music and Lemon's voice. So yeah, that was definitely a collaboration as well.
Thank you. Was that an original song, Lemon, or was it a?
Yeah, the song, it was kind of an interesting story how the song came together. Eris had this idea of creating a song that kind of elevates from the last scene where the main character was on the roof and looking at the moon rising up. So at that point, Noreen already had the score of that scene written out. So I was basically just improvising along with that and see where that goes. And the Eris had the idea of using something that's perlingual. So I didn't add any text. I was just humming along, and then I had echo. No, I had a 10-second delay or something. That's kind of like another voice calling back from a different space. And then then I gave the vocal bits to Noreen, and Noreen added the instrumentation on top of it. And another interesting thing that he did was he added a erhu part. Oh no, it was a shell part. Yes, that echo.
That's right. Yeah.
The echo with the voice, so it's like a third layer calling back.
Yeah, I thought it worked really well. And of course, you know, we have Jenny on screen bringing it all together with your performance. I wanted to ask what drew you to this project, and how did you prepare for this role? Because it's, you know, it's such an emotional performance that you've given.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, what drew me to the story was the writing and the story itself. It's about generations and trying to connect each other. I know growing up Asian American, it was extremely difficult to connect with my parents and my grandparents, just culturally and language wise, you know. So it was important for me to come on board and tell the stories that's very meaningful and more important nowadays. I feel like it's okay to be yourself, be Asian, you know. That's how I sort of not felt when I was growing up in America. I felt ashamed and this lack of identity. So for me to come on board and tell a story like this, it's amazing. It really is.
Thank you. And on that note, we have a question from several folks who watched Eris about your decision not to use subtitling, and you know, how you came upon that decision, and how you felt the outcome was.
Oh, that's a very good question. I made the conscious decision because I wanted the English only speakers to experience what the protagonist was experiencing. And I believe that even without subtitles, the audience would understand what the situation was and probably also feel more relatable to Jenny's character. And I also decided to only add subtitles during the dream sequence when in the vision, the younger mother was teaching the younger Lisa this Chinese ancient poem, which is really a common experience for any Chinese speakers. This is like almost the first poem everyone learns when you're trying to learn Chinese. And I hope that the poem, although is quite abstract and might not be familiar for people from other culture, but I hope they could feel from the text that it's nostalgia, and it's this sense of connection that goes back to our cultural roots. This is my first time to screen it to an audience that were not warned before that there were not going to be any subtitles. So I'm also curious about the audience's experience watching it.
Yeah, no, we have several accolades from our viewers saying that, you know, the film was really strong. It has this poignancy, this, you know, feeling of homesickness in a way, and, you know, where home is when you're no longer in the original place of birth. So congratulations. I think it made a really big impact. I have one question here from Grace, kind of connected to the subtitle question, and whether you've been able to, I know you said this is your first public screening, so maybe this hasn't been done, but she was wondering about reactions from a Mandarin speaking audience, if you've been able to screen for those communities.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have sent the film to several of my Mandarin speaking friends who are also like global citizens. I have friends who are Chinese Italian, for example, Chinese American, obviously. And for them, they all gave me this amazing feedback that the dream sequence was the climax, because it just made them all of a sudden remember how it was like when they started learning Chinese. And I also showed the film to my Chinese friends as well, and my family back in China. And for them, it's actually quite baffling that second generation or third generation Asian Americans would not speak their mother tongue because they're not familiar about the immigrant experience. And it's something that definitely we should put on our radar, because I also did some research. It turned out that 40% of second generation Asian Americans do not speak their mother tongue, and the rate dropped to like 8% or something when it came to third generation, which is drastically different from Hispanic speaking immigrant families. And I just thought that it's okay, definitely, to create your own identity in your own generation, but maybe there is a way for us to find a common connection through something that is beyond language. And I hope that the film did it for the audience.
Yes, definitely. I have a lot of accolades from the audience thanking you for such a powerful film. Congratulations again. I'll just have one last little question. If folks were unable to catch this screening, where can they find your project or your film next? Would you like to tell us about that?
The film is currently still in festival circuit, and I hope that as things are starting to become more normal, and I hope the film would be able to receive its audience in a theater. And I have a website for this film. It's www.mothertonguemovie.com. And if you guys want to catch the movie again, or just like send me a note, definitely go on that website and contact me.
That's great. Thank you. Congratulations again to all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you back here at the end of the program.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
And now we're going to bring the team from Awaken next. We have a warm welcome for director Leena Pendharkar, producer REENA DUTT, actress KUMARI, and composer RAASHI KULKARNI. Hi everyone, congratulations on such a powerful film. Welcome. You know, it's so interesting for me personally to see, you know, the lead actress, because I, you know, she had such an impactful performance as a teenager in Bend It Like Beckham, and it's lovely to see her, you know, in quite a mature role, and I definitely connected with her character. Congratulations. We have lots of comments in the comment box that I'm not really fully able to keep track of, congratulating you on the beauty of the film and how great it looks. And Leena, I wanted to start with you. You know, you're a veteran of CAAM-Fest, really. You've had several films screen here, and we've loved all of your work.
Thank you.
And you've been quite prolific. And I think for me, the question, and you're also a journalism school grad.
From Berkeley, yeah.
From Berkeley.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, I mean, you had a background in more nonfiction, and but then you pivoted and, you know, did all these narrative works. And, you know, lucky for CAAM, a lot of those stories were about the Asian American experience. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and your vision as a filmmaker.
Yeah, I mean, I went to UC Berkeley, got my master's in journalism, and I focused on documentary film. I had done a lot of nonfiction writing prior to that time, and then I went to Cal, and I feel like I also growing up did a lot of things that were like acting and singing and dancing, and I wasn't sure in my 20s, you know, which direction I wanted to go, but I do tend to really gravitate toward real life subjects. And what I found was that in my 20s, after PAing and working for a lot of different places, I also do a lot of writing. I just felt like I gravitated much more to fiction filmmaking. I mean, it just felt like a much more right place for me to be. But I'm glad I have my background in documentary film, because it gives me, you know, grounding and ability to use the research skills and the filmmaking skill. The filmmaking skills are really invaluable. So, but yeah, I ended up going from there and writing a lot of different screenplays and being in workshops and things. And I just felt much more like my work fit much more into that realm. And I do draw on a lot of very true life, real life experiences in a lot of my work. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I know, you know, a lot of your films, fiction films, are also drawn from personal experience. So I was wondering about Awaken. Was that also drawn from personal experience? What was the inspiration for this one?
Yeah, it was partly drawn from personal inspiration. My mother-in-law has Alzheimer's, and it's just a very tough disease. And I think, you know, we don't always talk about these things in the Indian American community and the Asian American community. And yeah, I gravitate towards these things as I'm pondering them and maybe processing them in some way. And so, yeah, it did come from real life, fictionalized from real life.
Thank you. Yeah. I also wanted to ask, perhaps we can then move to the other team members. How did you come to collaborate on this project together? And maybe I could start with REENA. I know you're also a director on this film, you're a producer. How did you connect with Leena and the project? What drew you to this one?
Yeah, well, I've known Leena for quite a while, actually. And we had, you know, looked at a couple projects that we were thinking about working on together, and then it just never worked out. And then she came to me with this project. And almost everything I do has some sort of a mission statement or social cause underneath it, whether it's a comedy or a drama, it doesn't really matter. So when I read this one, my grandmother actually dealt with dementia, and the idea of having a conversation starter surrounding this subject matter, it really struck me as important, really important. So that's kind of what I naturally gravitate to. So I was really excited she brought it to me.
Thank you. And of course, V, you had an amazing performance in this film. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I was wondering, I guess, first of all, what drew you to the project, but also how did you prepare for your role in this one?
I guess I was contacted to audition, and I loved the whole theme of the project, and so I auditioned, and Leena ended up picking me. My preparation is interesting because I have a 35-year or more background in neuroscience. I've been a neuroscience professor for over 35 years, so coming into acting has only been since 2012. So I could draw on those, but in teaching students, you tell them about the parts of the brain that's damaged, and it's really more kind of technical. And I watched a few films, and I didn't get enough from the films. So I actually had to watch about 30 or 50, I don't remember how many, YouTube videos of actual patients to be able to then understand kind of average, how are they in the middle of the disease? How are they in the beginning? How are they at the end? And I kind of figured out that this character is in the middle of the disease process. And so I kind of picked and chose from the YouTube videos what I could offer. So that was my preparation.
Wow, that's quite impressive. I had no idea you're a professor of neuroscience. Yeah, amazing acting. So hopefully you will get other projects and we'll act again soon.
Hopefully.
And Rashi, I had a question for you. The film has a really sort of suspenseful and moody soundtrack. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the sound design and I guess the the creation of the sound for this project?
Well, Leena and I actually spotted the film together, and she kind of gave me an idea of what she was thinking in terms of the sound, but we wanted to make sure that the music was telling Rakhi's story and her internal struggle. But it was kind of basically built upon what's kind of going in her head in a sense. And so, yeah, there's points in the score where, you know, my job is just to basically enhance those emotions and those feelings, but never to take away from what's actually happening on screen. So, you know, there are moments of when her mom's missing, you know, Leena was telling me, let's have some kind of pulse. We should feel what she's feeling. So we did use a lot of like kind of synthy sounds in that regard. But then for the emotional part, that's where we had the piano. So it was kind of this hybrid of, you know, acoustic with synthy elements to create this overall soundscape.
Yeah, it was really interesting. For me, I think it really captured the fear, you know, of losing a loved one like that. And I also have an elderly parent who I was taking care of, and that, you know, uncertainty of, oh, you know, something really terrible could have happened here. I thought that the sound really captured that emotion quite well for me. Yeah, and I was afraid when she lost her mom, you know, like where could she be? And I thought that really evoked that sense of suspense quite well. Leena, we have a couple of questions on here about, you know, how beautiful, I mean, comments about how beautiful this work is. And it looks amazing. So they were wondering, maybe Reena, you could also add, and you know, to this question. They were wondering about the budget. I mean, it looks like a really high budget film.
Oh, we can't hear
you. Sorry. No, I wouldn't say it's a super high budget film. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm resourceful in that, like, I'm able to use different things. I mean, I think one thing that gives it this really nice look is the anamorphic lenses. And the DP and I, Daoud Sani, have been working together for a long time. So we have definitely like a very good shorthand of how we wanted it to look and how we wanted it to feel. We went into it knowing there was a very specific type of lens. I went into it knowing that I wanted it to look and feel like almost like a thriller TV drama kind of vibe, but I didn't want to go in with something that was, that I wanted that very specific look. So I went into it having planned out everything very, very clearly. Like I was lucky, I was able to go into the locations, block everything out, map out every shot and how I wanted it to look. So that really made a big difference.
And just to add to that, I want to give a shout out to Daoud, because our camera and G&E team, you know, when you've got these talented people that you get to work with, you can take any technology and make something absolutely stunning out of it. The marriage of a storyteller with her team is just incredible. And this was a great example of that.
Yeah, and I mean, I had working with Parminder and V and Seamus Deaver, I mean, they're all just such incredible actors that I was able to be able to use the time very efficiently. Like I knew how I'd block it, but they were all very good about working with me on that. And so when you have that with a DP who's amazing and a producer like Reena who really knew how to budget all the time very carefully, we were really, really efficient. So yeah.
How long was your production schedule? And did you shoot this right before everything shut down, or when was this all happening?
Well, we shot last summer.
Okay.
And like June, June. And then we had post in like July, August, a little bit of September. Yeah, so that was pretty much, and we shot for 3 days, 2.5 days.
Wow.
Yeah, we shot for 2.5 days. We're very efficient though. And I was so blessed to work with people like Reena, RAASHI, and V. Again, like RAASHI is very, very quick, and like I could give her a note and she could take the directions so easily. Same with Reena, it was like I could give thoughts on the location and she could budget so clearly and easily how long we had and all that. So that was one of the most amazing experiences to work with all these artists who have so much knowledge.
Amazing. We have a question from Lisa for V, actually, and she asks, please ask V, the neuroscientist, about identity and memory loss in Asian American immigrants who are alienated from their home countries. I'm not sure if that's an answerable question, but
yeah, that's a very, very deep question that I don't know if I can answer. The question is about identity and
memory loss in Asian American immigrants.
Yeah, I mean, memory loss, of course, in the course of it will create a loss of identity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. The question is interesting because is that different in Asian Americans, Asian immigrants than the general population? I truly don't know how to answer that. But I can just say that it does lead at a certain stage to loss of your identity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But, once that happens, it's probably the same thing because for everyone, because what you don't know, you don't know. So, so I think it's going to be the same, I think, but I'm taking a guess. I don't know. Thank you for.
Oh yeah, Leena, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to make a comment that just experiencing Alzheimer's firsthand from a daughter of somebody suffering from it, it's challenging to find caregivers, for example, who speak Gujarati. Mm-hmm. And I know in our case, my mother-in-law prefers to speak Gujarati and doesn't really want to speak English anymore at the stage she's at. And finding caregivers has been a challenge, finding food, finding resources. And REENA and I actually did some research. We went and visited a care center in San Diego just to kind of, find those resources. So that's something that I think is definitely a challenge in our generation.
Yeah. And Leena, we have a comment from our sponsor, actually, AARP, who says, thank you so much for sharing this powerful story. AARP is so proud to be presenting sponsor of your film and to help our communities address the personal stories of our loved ones aging and of dementia and Alzheimer's. We want to encourage you to produce more stories about our aging loved ones. I was actually thinking that, this seems like a short snippet, and as a lot of your films, I felt like there could have been a feature, made about this and what's next. I wanted to find out more about REENA, the sister who's absent.
I mean, I have both a feature and a TV show. I've been working on the feature. I've been working on the TV show. It's like I've got a, 15-page treatment, and I'm trying to flesh that out and develop that. And, working with Parminder was such a joy. I would love to find something to do with her. She's so brilliant and deserves her own show. So yeah, I have the material. I just have to find the right people to help me get it going. So.
Well, congratulations. This was such a beautiful project. We're going to wrap up, but I wanted to ask Leena, if people didn't catch this screening, where can they catch Awaken next? What are your festival plans for this one?
Yeah, we are touring with it as much as we can. I mean, everything is a bit strange because of COVID-19, but we are trying to get it out. I've been so impressed with CAAM, and how you guys have been able to get this event together. So we have some upcoming other virtual festivals. So we have a website, and then we have our Facebook page, which is just Awaken-movie. And I hope you'll join us, because we'll be posting on there, and my Facebook page, REENA's Facebook page, V's Facebook page, RAASHI's Facebook page. All of us are on social media, so please follow us. And my Instagram is Leena. What is mine? LeenaPen.filmmaker. So.
And we are
now we're gonna invite the rest of the filmmaking team from Mother Tongue to join us to take our final bow. Thank you all so much for making time to join us on this virtual screening. I hope you stay connected, because we have our final closing film screening at 5. It's a 10th anniversary screening of HP's Fruit Fly. Thank you again so much for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you all. Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
have a
you.
good one.